What happened when cartoon makers stopped caring whether parents were comfortable? The 1970s gave us animation filled with adult jokes, political anger, frightening images, racial tension, and scenes no family network would touch without warnings or heavy cuts today. These 20 cartoons prove that animation was never as innocent as people remember. Before we begin, like this video, share it with another animation fan, and subscribe to the channel. Number 20. The Rescuers, 1977. At first, The Rescuers looks like the safest film on this list. It is a Disney adventure about two tiny members of the Rescue Aid Society, Bernard and Miss Bianca, who receive a message from an orphan named Penny. She has been taken to a gloomy swamp by Madame Medusa, a greedy woman searching for a famous diamond. Bernard and Bianca travel by albatross, join local animals, and help Penny escape from a flooded cave. The movie itself is tense, but clearly made for families. The forbidden part was hidden so quickly that almost nobody noticed it in theaters. During the sequence in which Bernard and Bianca fly through the city inside a sardine can attached to Orville the albatross, 2 frames showed an objectionable photograph in a building window. In January 1999, Disney recalled millions of videocassettes after confirming the background image. The company said the recall was meant to protect the trust families placed in the Disney name. Later versions removed the frames. The recall proved that even a 2-frame mistake could force a major studio to replace an entire release. It was not banned for its story, and it can still be watched today. But the original unedited home video master became something Disney itself refused to keep in circulation. A modern family release containing the same hidden image would be corrected before broadcast, not defended as harmless nostalgia. Number 19. The Mouse and His Child, 1977. The Mouse and His Child begins like a gentle toy story, then slowly turns into an existential nightmare. A wind-up mouse and his young son are sold as a Christmas toy. After being broken and thrown away, they enter a dangerous outside world where mechanical toys cannot move freely unless someone winds them. Their dream is simple: find the toy elephant and seal they once saw in a shop window, build a real home, and somehow become self-winding. The villain is Manny Rat, a cruel ruler who controls broken toys and forces them to work. The most famous disturbing sequence happens when the mice become trapped near a theater of mechanical animals. A violent struggle erupts, performers are destroyed, and the cheerful idea of living toys suddenly feels cold and frightening. Another unforgettable moment shows the child mouse questioning whether he and his father are truly alive or only objects repeating motions chosen by someone else. It was adapted from Russell Hoban's novel and promoted as family animation, yet its mood is closer to dark literature than a Saturday morning adventure. A modern broadcaster could still show it, but probably not as casual entertainment for very young children. If these first 2 already surprised you, subscribe now because the list becomes far more controversial from here. And tell us in the comments which supposedly innocent cartoon frightened you when you were young. Number 18. Ringing Bell, 1978. Ringing Bell may have the look of a sweet animal cartoon, but it behaves like a revenge tragedy. Chirin is a small lamb living peacefully with his mother on a farm. He wears a bell, plays in the grass, and believes the fence keeps danger outside. Then a wolf named Woe enters the barn and kills Chirin's mother while she protects him. Instead of returning to safety, Chirin follows the wolf into the mountains. He demands to become strong enough to take revenge. Woe first rejects him, but Chirin refuses to leave. Seasons pass, the lamb grows into a powerful ram, and the two become a terrifying hunting pair. The famous turning point arrives when Chirin returns to the farm during a storm. He is now so changed that the sheep do not recognize him. When Woe attacks the flock, Chirin finally confronts the creature who trained him. The victory brings no comfort. Chirin has destroyed the last connection he had, and the frightened flock still sees him as a monster. He walks away alone, with only the sound of his bell remaining. That ending is why the film stays with viewers. It tells children that revenge can consume the person seeking it, and it refuses to repair the damage with a cheerful song. Sanrio produced the film from a story by Takashi Yanase, but it takes a sudden turn into darkness, violence, and grief. Today it could air as serious animation, but placing it beside light preschool cartoons would cause outrage. Its message is valuable, yet it arrives through trauma rather than comfort. Number 17. A Christmas Carol, 1971. Richard Williams's A Christmas Carol does not soften Dickens into a warm holiday cartoon. It follows the familiar story of Ebenezer Scrooge, a bitter businessman who rejects charity, family, and Christmas itself. After the ghost of his former partner, Jacob Marley, appears in chains, Scrooge is taken through his past, present, and possible future by three supernatural visitors. The most unforgettable sequence comes when the ghost of Christmas yet to come silently leads Scrooge through a city that barely notices his death. Shadows stretch across the streets, mourners are absent, and thieves divide the dead man's belongings as if his life meant nothing. The animation, inspired by 19th-century engraved illustrations, makes faces twist, rooms bend, and darkness seem alive. Even Marley's entrance feels closer to a horror film than a cheerful television special. The short was first broadcast on television in December 1971. It later received a theatrical release and won the Academy Award for Animated Short Film. That success is surprising because the film refuses the bright colors, comic animals, and comforting songs usually associated with Christmas animation. It could still be shown today, but probably not dropped without warning into a preschool holiday block. The graveyard imagery, ghostly faces, poverty, death, and frightening visions would require clear guidance for younger viewers. This version is powerful because it remembers that Dickens wrote a ghost story before he wrote a celebration. Scrooge is saved, but the cartoon first forces him and the audience to stare directly at the cold future he created. Number 16. Raggedy Ann. Andy, a Musical Adventure, 1977. Raggedy Ann and Andy begins in a child's bedroom, where toys secretly come alive. The trouble starts when a French doll named Babette arrives as a birthday present. A pirate called Captain Contagious kidnaps her, forcing Raggedy Ann and Andy to leave the playroom and cross a strange world filled with unstable rulers, hungry creatures, and characters who become frightening. The film's most famous sequence introduces the Greedy, a huge living mass of candy that constantly eats itself. It sings, laughs, changes shape, and tries to consume anything sweet, including the heart sewn inside Raggedy Ann. The scene is colorful and technically dazzling, yet the idea of a smiling creature attempting to swallow the heroine feels deeply unsettling. Later, the camel with the wrinkled knees wanders through a surreal desert while parts of his body appear to move separately. Richard Williams directed the film, and its animation was praised for extraordinary fluidity. Yet its mood jumps wildly from innocent songs to kidnapping, threats, emotional collapse, and dreamlike danger. Young viewers expecting a simple toy adventure can suddenly find themselves inside something closer to a psychedelic stage show. A modern family service could still carry it, but broadcasters would likely add age guidance and avoid presenting it as harmless entertainment for toddlers. The problem is not realistic violence, it is the unpredictable tone. Every cheerful location may hide a creature that wants to trap, consume, or humiliate the heroes. Raggedy Ann and Andy look soft, stitched, and safe, while its world behaves like a fever dream. Number 15. Metamorphoses, 1979. Metamorphoses, also circulated under the title Winds of Change, tries to turn the ancient stories of Ovid into a modern animated spectacle. Narrated in one version by Peter Ustinov, the film moves through myths involving Perseus, Medusa, Actaeon, Orpheus, Eurydice, and other people whose lives are changed by gods, pride, jealousy, or punishment. The most disturbing story follows Actaeon, a young hunter who accidentally sees the goddess Diana bathing. His punishment is immediate and cruel. He is transformed into a stag, and the hunting dogs that once obeyed him no longer recognize their master. The animals chase him as prey, turning a colorful mythological cartoon into a story about identity being erased in seconds. The Perseus section brings another frightening image when Medusa's beautiful appearance gives way to the snake-covered monster hidden beneath it. The film was released in the United States in 1978 with a PG rating. It mixed myth, fantasy, pop music, and late 70s visual experimentation, but it struggled to find a clear audience. The designs can appear gentle and childlike, while the stories involve death, revenge, forbidden desire, and gods who punish humans without mercy. Today, it could work in a mythology lesson or specialist animation program, but a casual children's broadcast would need careful warnings. Modern family animation usually explains danger, softens punishment, or gives young heroes emotional protection. Metamorphoses does the opposite. It presents ancient morality exactly as a nightmare. One mistake can change your body, destroy your future, and make even your loyal companions turn against you. Number 14. Lupin III, The Mystery of Mamo, 1978. The Mystery of Mamo takes the television thief Lupin III and removes many of the limits that usually protect a broadcast audience. The story begins with Lupin apparently being executed, only for the real Lupin to appear alive. He soon learns that a mysterious billionaire named Mamo is using cloning technology in a desperate search for immortality. Lupin, Jigen, Goemon, and Fujiko become trapped in a plot involving secret laboratories, world leaders, stolen art, and copies of human bodies. One of the most famous scenes places Lupin inside Mamo's strange psychological tests. Reality bends, famous paintings come alive, and the film shifts from crime comedy into surreal science fiction. Later, Mamo reveals the scale of his cloning project and treats human identity like something that can be stored, copied, and owned. The movie is funny, but it is also violent, sexually charged, and full of crude dialogue. Over the years, 4 separate English dubs appeared, with altered names, rewritten dialogue, logo removals, and other changes. Copyright concerns even caused Lupin to be called Wolf in some versions. Modern adult anime channels could show the film, but an unchanged family broadcast would be unlikely. Its mature humor, suggestive scenes, weapons, and chaotic editing would require a late slot and clear rating. What makes Mamo fascinating is that it refuses to behave like a safe television spin-off. It acts as if the cartoon format gives it permission to become stranger, nastier, and more philosophical than live action. Number 13. The Lord of the Rings, 1978. Ralph Bakshi's animated The Lord of the Rings was marketed as fantasy adventure, but its atmosphere is far harsher than the bright family cartoons surrounding it in the late 1970s. The film follows Frodo Baggins as he leaves the Shire carrying the One Ring. Gandalf, Aragorn, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Legolas, Gimli, and Boromir join the struggle against Sauron's growing armies. Bakshi combined traditional animation with rotoscoping, filming actors and tracing their movement. The technique becomes most frightening during the attacks by the Ringwraiths and the battles involving orc armies. Their bodies move like real soldiers trapped under painted shadows. The famous Weathertop sequence turns Frodo's encounter with the Ringwraiths into a nightmare of distorted skies, black figures, and a blade that poisons both body and mind. The film contains warfare, frightening creatures, death, and an ending that stops before Tolkien's full story is complete. Some viewers were angry because advertising did not make the unfinished nature clear enough, yet the abrupt ending also adds to the film's forbidden reputation. It was not banned, and modern platforms still carry it. An uncut version shown to small children without warning would be difficult today because its rotoscoped violence looks more human than ordinary cartoon combat. Bakshi wanted animation to carry weight, dirt, fear, and physical danger. The result is a Middle-earth, where evil does not look safely imaginary. It looks like old war footage leaking into a fantasy book. Number 12. Wizards, 1977. Wizards begins after a worldwide disaster has nearly destroyed civilization. Thousands of years later, magic has returned. Fairies, elves, and peaceful creatures live in Montagar under the good wizard Avatar. His deformed twin brother, Black Wolf, rules the industrial land of Scorch and wants to conquer the world using machines, weapons, and fear. The movie's most controversial idea arrives when Black Wolf discovers old fascist propaganda films. He projects the footage for his soldiers, using images from real 20th century war history to inspire his mutant army and terrify his enemies. Suddenly, the fantasy cartoon is interrupted by tanks, rallies, symbols, and filmed crowds from the real world. Bakshi mixes those images with animation so that historical evil becomes a weapon inside a fairy tale. The famous final confrontation is just as surprising. Viewers expect a magical duel between the brothers. Instead, Avatar ends the argument with a hidden handgun. The joke is quick, violent, and completely destroys the fantasy rulebook. Magic does not defeat technology through purity. It uses an even simpler piece of technology first. Wizards was rated for older audiences, yet its colorful characters and fantasy setting could easily mislead parents. Today, the use of real propaganda imagery would require strong context, especially on television. Broadcasters would also worry about children seeing a gunshot played as a sudden punchline. It uses the footage to show how images can control frightened crowds. Wizards looks like fantasy, then forces history through the screen. Number 11. Fantastic Planet, 1973. Fantastic Planet takes place on a distant world where giant blue beings called trogs keep humans, known as Oms, as pets, or treat them like pests. A human baby named Ter is adopted by a young trog named Tiwa. She dresses him, plays with him, and controls him with a collar. Ter secretly learns through her educational headset, escapes, and brings knowledge to a hidden group of wild Oms. The film's famous scenes are beautiful and disturbing at the same time. Giant children casually torment tiny humans. Strange animals hunt for pleasure. During a trog extermination operation, machines spread deadly material across an Om settlement as if the people were insects. Later, the Oms fight back and discover the trog's secret meditation world, forcing both species to face the cost of domination. There is nudity, death, drug-like imagery, and violence. But the deeper controversy is political. The story can be read as a warning about racism, colonialism, animal cruelty, and any society that decides another group is less than human. Fantastic Planet won the Grand Prix Special Jury Prize at Cannes and is now respected as a classic. It was not created for a children's network, even though its colorful aliens sometimes appear on family animation lists. A modern broadcaster could show it as international art cinema. An unannounced daytime airing would be another matter. The extermination scenes alone would demand warnings. It asks viewers to imagine how normal oppression looks to the powerful people performing it. Number 10. Hugo the Hippo, 1975. Hugo the Hippo looks like a bright musical made for young children, but its story begins with mass betrayal. The ruler of Zanzibar brings hippopotamuses to the harbor so they can drive away dangerous sharks. The hippos complete the job, yet the people soon decide the animals have become inconvenient. Almost the entire group is destroyed, leaving young Hugo alone. A boy named Jorma befriends him, but Hugo's survival leads into one bizarre threat after another. He faces a cruel advisor, strange weapons, hungry creatures, public fear, and a city that treats him as useful only when powerful people need him. The film's most notorious moments involve the cheerful musical tone colliding with images of animals being hunted, trapped, or removed after saving the same society that turns against them. The shark attack and disappearance of the adult hippos are especially harsh because the colors and songs suggest safety, while the story delivers abandonment. The film was a Hungarian-American production, with animation connected to Hungary's Pannonia studio. Its English voice cast included Burl Ives, Paul Lind, and Robert Morley, while songs were performed by Marie and Jimmy Osmond. Despite that family-friendly packaging, the movie became an obscure cult object, rather than a lasting children's classic. A modern network might accept the environmental message, but it would probably question the racialized setting, political caricatures, smoking villains, and sudden cruelty toward animals. Hugo is not simply a cute hero. He is the survivor of a community that uses outsiders, fears them, and tries to erase them when the crisis is over. Number 9. Cleopatra, 1970. Osamu Tezuka and Eiichi Yamamoto's Cleopatra is not a normal historical epic. It begins in the future, where 3 agents learn that aliens are planning an operation named after the Egyptian queen. Their minds are sent back in time and placed inside bodies in ancient Egypt. From there, the movie retells Cleopatra's relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, while mixing political parody, science fiction, comedy, and adult fantasy. The famous scenes are impossible to confuse with educational animation. Cleopatra is transformed into an ideal beauty as part of a plan to influence Rome. The movie jumps between stylized romance, broad jokes, battle, pop art designs, and deliberate references to modern celebrities and politics. Cleopatra was the second film in Mushi Productions' Animerama trilogy, a series built to prove that Japanese animation could target adults. When the film reached the United States, promoters tried to benefit from the excitement surrounding X-rated animation, sometimes presenting it under the title Cleopatra, Queen of Sex. It was not actually submitted to the American Ratings Board in the same way as Fritz the Cat, but the marketing encouraged audiences to think of it as forbidden material. Today, the film would belong on a specialist anime service with a mature label. Its sexual content, stereotypes, and chaotic tone would make normal broadcast placement difficult. Cleopatra behaves like a rebellious sketchbook. It takes a famous queen, sends modern minds into her world, and uses animation to turn history into an adult carnival. Number 8. The Dwarf and the Witch, 1975. The Dwarf and the Witch, originally titled Il Nano e la Strega and later distributed as King Dick, is an Italian-French cartoon created strictly for adult audiences. The story follows a dwarf servant who becomes the target of a desperate witch. She believes completing a bizarre magical challenge will restore her youth and beauty, so she chases him through a chaotic fantasy world filled with corrupt nobles, dishonest religious figures, strange creatures, and deliberately offensive jokes. The film barely pauses for a normal plot. Medieval castles, forests, monasteries, and royal courts become stages for crude visual comedy. One notorious sequence places the hero inside a religious community where supposedly respectable characters immediately reveal their hypocrisy. Elsewhere, magical creatures and ordinary objects transform into suggestive shapes, allowing the animators to show jokes that live-action filmmakers would have struggled to place in mainstream cinemas. The cartoon was produced after adult animation became commercially attractive during the early 1970s. Instead of using animation for serious political storytelling, it focused heavily on bodily humor, adult situations, and attacks on traditional morality. Its innocent fairy tale appearance made the material seem even more provocative. The controversy became official when British censors examined the film in November 1977 and declared it unsuitable for classification. Without a certificate, it could not receive a normal British cinema release at that time. An uncut television broadcast would be impossible today outside a heavily restricted adult service. Its religious mockery, treatment of women, explicit visual jokes, and outdated stereotypes are not occasional details that could be removed. They are almost the entire film. The Dwarf and the Witch did not accidentally cross the line. Crossing the line was its main purpose. Number 7. Once Upon a Girl, 1976. Once Upon a Girl takes familiar fairy tales and deliberately destroys every family-friendly version. The film begins with Mother Goose being placed on trial for obscenity. To defend herself, she tells the court what she claims are the real stories behind Jack and the Beanstalk, Cinderella, and Little Red Riding Hood. That courtroom structure gives the movie an excuse to present a collection of openly adult animated episodes. The jokes turn magical objects, royal romance, giants, and forest encounters into crude sexual comedy. The famous Cinderella section takes the glass slipper test and changes it into an unmistakably adult joke about whether the prince has found the correct woman. Little Red Riding Hood's journey becomes another excuse to twist a childhood story into material meant only for late-night audiences. The film was originally rated X. It later circulated mainly as an obscure piece of adult animation history rather than a mainstream cartoon. Even animation historians who discuss it often do so as an example of how quickly producers tried to copy the financial success of Fritz the Cat without matching its political ambition. The entire controversy comes from placing explicit humor inside nursery stories. An adult platform could host the film with strict labeling. A television airing near family programming would be unthinkable. Once Upon a Girl depends on recognition. The audience must know the innocent version before the cartoon can ruin it. That is why the jokes feel less like parody and more like a raid on childhood memory. Number 6. Down and Dirty Duck, 1974. Down and Dirty Duck follows Willard, a painfully shy insurance worker who spends more time fantasizing than living. He wants to approach a secretary named Susie, but cannot speak to her. His employer sends him to investigate a claim involving an older tattoo artist named Painless Martha. After Martha suddenly dies, her will leaves Willard responsible for a loud, rude duck who becomes his guide through a series of nightclubs, adult businesses, strange encounters, and psychedelic fantasies. The movie barely follows normal story rules. The duck drags Willard from one episode to another, while songs, visual jokes, and surreal transformations interrupt the plot. One famous sequence turns the city into a flowing collage of bodies, signs, music, and objects. Another sends the pair into a brothel, where the cartoon style becomes an excuse for jokes no live-action comedy could have shown as cheaply. The film was directed by Charles Swenson, featured music and voices from Flo and Eddie, and was associated with producer Roger Corman's New World Pictures. It was promoted with an X rating, even though sources note it was not formally submitted to the American Ratings Board in the same way as Fritz the Cat. It eventually became a late-show curiosity and received mostly negative reviews. Today, the language, sexual content, racial caricatures, and treatment of women would make an uncut television showing extremely unlikely. Yet it matters historically. Down and Dirty Duck shows what happened after Hollywood discovered that an adult cartoon could make money. The lesson copied was not, "Animation can tell mature stories." The lesson was simply, "Make the cartoon dirtier." Number 5. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, 1974. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat brings Fritz back as a married father trapped in a miserable apartment. While his wife complains and his child cries, Fritz escapes by smoking and imagining 9 separate lives. Each fantasy places him in a different role, country, or political situation, allowing the film to jump through disconnected sketches rather than tell one continuous story. The most famous section sends Fritz into a future where the United States has changed dramatically and racial conflict has become open warfare. The film repeatedly tries to shock the audience with sex, drugs, political jokes, and offensive caricatures. Ralph Bakshi did not direct the sequel, and Fritz's creator Robert Crumb was not involved. Director Robert Taylor inherited a character whose first film had become a symbol of adult animation, but the sequel replaced much of the original social anger with random provocation. Historically, it still holds an important place. It became the first American animated feature to receive an R rating and competed at Cannes. Modern critics often argue that its racial and gay stereotypes do not expose prejudice, they simply repeat it. An uncut mainstream television airing today would create immediate backlash. The problem is not only adult content, it is the way vulnerable groups become targets in scenes with little purpose beyond getting a reaction. Number 4. Watership Down, 1978. Watership Down has rabbits, green fields, and a famous song, yet it remains an example of animation being mistaken for safe children's entertainment. The story follows Hazel, Fiver, Bigwig, and a group of rabbits who flee their warren after Fiver sees a terrifying vision of destruction. Their search for a new home leads through predators, human traps, military control, and brutal conflict with the authoritarian warren of Ephrafa. The famous snare sequence is almost unbearable. Bigwig is caught by the neck and struggles for air while blood gathers around his mouth. Hazel and the others dig at the peg holding the wire, but Bigwig's movements become weaker as the trap tightens. Another disturbing sequence shows Fiver's vision of fields covered in blood, while the destruction of the original warren suggests rabbits suffocating underground as machinery tears through their home. For decades, the film carried a British U certificate, meaning it was treated as suitable for general audiences. Complaints about that decision continued. In August 2022, the British Board of Film Classification reclassified it PG, citing violence, threat, bloody images, and language. Watership Down can be shown today, but not as an unquestioned holiday cartoon for small children. Modern broadcasters would use warnings, age guidance, and careful scheduling. The violence is not included for empty shock. It supports a serious story about leadership, freedom, survival, and tyranny. But that purpose does not make the images gentle. These rabbits do not bounce back after danger. They bleed, panic, lose friends, and understand that the world may destroy them simply because they are in the way. Number 3. Coonskin, 1975. Ralph Bakshi's Coonskin uses an offensive title and deliberately ugly racial images to attack racism, organized crime, police corruption, and the entertainment industry. The film mixes live action with animation. In the live-action story, a man waiting outside a prison tells a tale about 3 characters, Brother Rabbit, Brother Bear, and Preacher Fox, who leave the American South and enter Harlem. In the animated story, Rabbit tries to take control of the city, from gangsters, corrupt officers, con artists, and a mafia figure known as the Godfather. The most famous opening sequence presents a performer singing, while racist images from American popular culture appear and transform around her. Bakshi's intention was confrontation. He wanted viewers to see how cartoons, advertising, and movies had created a brutal visual language around black identity. But intention did not prevent outrage. The Congress of Racial Equality protested a Museum of Modern Art screening and picketed Paramount. Critics inside the organization argued that the film repeated the very images it claimed to attack. The NOC described it as difficult satire, but supported it. Paramount withdrew. The film found another distributor, and that company went bankrupt shortly after release. Some voice material was reportedly re-recorded to remove racist references and vulgarity. Coonskin remains one of animation's hardest debates. Some viewers see a fearless attack on American racism. Others see exploitation hiding behind satire. No mainstream channel would air it today without extensive context, warnings, and probably cuts. The film was not merely controversial after release. Controversy changed who distributed it, how it was marketed, and how audiences were allowed to encounter it. Number 2. Heavy Traffic, 1973. Heavy Traffic is Ralph Bakshi's nightmare portrait of New York City. Michael Corleone is a young cartoonist living with his constantly fighting parents. His father is Italian-American, his mother is Jewish, and their apartment feels like a pressure cooker. Michael escapes into drawings, pinball machines, and fantasies about the violent streets around him. He falls in love with Carol, a black bartender, and dreams of escaping with her. Its famous pinball metaphor appears throughout the story. People bounce through the city like metal balls, struck by forces they cannot control. In one shocking scene, Michael's father tries to hire someone to kill Carol because he rejects the relationship. Other scenes move through bars, criminal schemes, family fights, and street violence, with no safe distance between comedy and despair. The American Ratings Board gave Heavy Traffic an X rating despite attempts to secure an R. The rating limited where it could play, but the success of Fritz the Cat meant more theaters were willing to risk adult animation. The film became financially successful and was widely praised. However, the censorship board in Alberta, Canada, banned it when it was first released. Today, Heavy Traffic would still find an audience on adult platforms. A normal television broadcast would require major editing for language, sexual material, violence, and racial insults. Cutting those elements would also weaken the film's purpose, because Bakshi wanted the city to feel loud, prejudiced, intimate, and dangerous. This cartoon was forbidden not because it escaped reality, but because it drew reality too close. Number 1. Fritz the Cat, 1972. Fritz the Cat changed the business of animation by proving that a cartoon could become a major adult hit. Based on Robert Crumb's underground comic character, the film follows Fritz, a selfish college cat wandering through New York during the counterculture era. He talks about poetry and revolution, chases women, uses drugs, enters political movements, and treats every cause as another stage for his ego. The film's famous bathtub sequence begins as a gathering of young people, talking, smoking, and trying to appear sophisticated. It becomes an overcrowded adult party, showing how Fritz uses fashionable ideas to impress others. Later, a police raid grows into street violence. Fritz then joins radical activists, only to discover that their plans are as dangerous and dishonest as the society they claim to oppose. The Motion Picture Association gave Fritz the Cat an X rating, making it the first American animated feature to receive that classification. The rating cost the film bookings, and some newspapers refused its advertisements. The distributor then turned the restriction into marketing, selling the movie as the cartoon audiences were not supposed to see. It became a huge financial success and helped open the door for adult animation. Crumb hated the adaptation's changes and distanced himself from it. Critics attacked the sexual content, racial stereotypes, drug use, violence, and treatment of political movements. An uncut network broadcast today would be impossible. Yet Fritz is number 1 because every later forbidden cartoon benefited from the door it kicked open. It proved rule-breaking could sell tickets. The 1970s did not treat cartoons as a safe little corner for children. Animators used them to explore politics, desire, prejudice, war, death, and every uncomfortable subject television tried to avoid. Which title shocked you most, and which one deserves a serious modern re-release? Share your choice below, like the video, and subscribe for more forgotten films, banned scenes, and animation history that still makes people nervous.